Hey there, boys and girls. How are you? I hope you had a good Thanksgiving break and ate a lot on Turkey Day. I know I did. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be starting with fractions. So we're going to be taking what we learned last year with fractions and taking it a little bit farther with adding and subtracting with unlike denominators, multiplying fractions, dividing fractions, and that fun stuff. So before we do that, today I want to take a few minutes to review a couple of things to help make our transition to fractions a little bit easier. So today we're going to be practicing and reviewing greatest common factor and least common multiple. So those are going to help us when we get into the adding of fractions with unlike denominators, which means our denominators are not the same. So what I would like you to do is to label your paper fractions, finding the LCM, which stands for least common multiple, and the GCF, which is the greatest common factor. Okay, so I hope, my fingers are crossed, that when you found your page, you went to the next available page and you didn't skip through a couple of pages. And remember tomorrow during warm-up to have this out during your warm-up so I can give you credit for having your math journal complete, neat, and organized. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the greatest common factors. So let's talk about what a factor is. Hopefully you remember in warm-ups at the beginning of the year we were finding factors of different numbers. So the factors are numbers that you can multiply together to get the product. So write that down. So finding the greatest common factor helps us when we're trying to find equivalent fractions. So, but let's just say if I'm looking for greatest common factors, if I have a number that is like 3/4 and then I have 5/6. If I want to find the factor, the greatest common factor, what I need to do is go, okay, 1, 4, 2, 2, and those are my factors. 6, I can go 1 times 6, I can go 2 times 3, 4, nothing, 5, nothing, then 6. So then my greatest common factor is going to be 2. Okay, so that's going to help us when we need to find a common factor between two fractions. And we'll get more into when that's going to happen when we get into adding and subtracting of fractions tomorrow in tomorrow's screencast. So that is finding the greatest common factor. Review. So what I'd like you to do is find what is the greatest common factor of 3/18 and no, let's not do 3/18. Let's do 3/8. Oops. 3/8 and 5/6. We'll do that 5/6 again. Okay, so pause the video, find your greatest common factors. Okay, so hopefully you have 1, 8, 2, and 4, 3, nothing, 4, and we're back to the 4. And then we already know the 6's are 1, 2, 3, and 6. So when I look here, my greatest common factor would be the 2. Okay? So we have that, and hopefully you remember that from when we were simplifying fractions last year. Let me just give you a quick bring your brain back. So if I had 6/18, remember I would find my common factors. So I had 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and then I had 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. And then I would go and find my greatest common factor, which was 6. So then I would divide them both by 6. Divide it both by 6. I don't know why that keeps popping up. So then my answer is 6 divided by 6 is 1. And 18 divided by 6 is 3. So it would be 1/3. Hopefully that's now coming back to you. So now let's talk about our least common multiple. So our LCM. Well, let's review what a multiple is. So a multiple is the number that what your product is. So it's the product of two numbers multiplied together. So for example, if I asked you for all of the multiples of 3, this is my example, you would go, okay, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. And so on, so on, and so on. Those are considered your multiples. So these would be my multiples of 3. Okay, and we're going to need to know that for finding common denominators. So if I have two numbers, so this may be something new that you're learning. So let's take that I have 4, 6, oops, and I'm writing a 2. 4 6 and 2/3. I'm going to do this. If I wanted to find, so now I'm looking for my least common multiple. Now with the factors, we wanted the greatest common factor. With the multiples, we want the least because we want to work with those smaller numbers. If you pick a multiple that's common in both of them, it'll work, but you're going to be working with bigger numbers. So the least means smaller numbers. So if I want to find my least common multiples of these two numbers, 6 times 1 is 6. And usually I do 3 numbers for each of them. And if I haven't come up with a common multiple yet, I go on. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, let's go here. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. See right there, I see I have a common multiple. So 6 and 6 are my common multiples. So tomorrow when we're working on adding and subtracting fractions with the least with unlike denominators, we're going to need these least common multiples to make equivalent fractions with a common denominator. So this least common multiple is going to become our new denominator for two fractions that are going to be equivalent, but now they're going to have a like denominator. So for example, I can make an equivalent fraction of 4 6 and 2/3 with having 6 as a denominator. So we'll get more into that tomorrow. Today I want to make sure you've mastered finding the least common multiple and finding the greatest common factor. So tomorrow, the steps to finding fractions with common denominators will be easier for you. So let's do a practice problem for you. So what I would like you to do is find the least common multiple for 3/8 and for 12ths. Okay, so go ahead and find your least common multiple. Okay, let's try this. So I have 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. Okay, remember I only do the first 3. 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. Oh, right there, I have my least common multiple, 24, so I'm going to stop. So the least common multiple of 3/8 and 4/12 is 24. So if I was taking this a step further, to make these two equivalent fractions, my new denominator, or to make them not only to make equivalent fractions, but fractions with the same denominator so I could add and subtract them easier, my new denominator would be 24. Okay, so today your keyword is Twitter. Twitter is your keyword. You probably figured out that I do the keyword just by looking around my room and seeing what pops out first. Okay, so you're going to have a couple of problems to do on your form. Please make sure you do your form and submit it so you get credit for doing your homework tonight. Tomorrow I need to see your math journal for your first part of credit, and I need to have checked you off for having your form submitted. Okay, have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow.